Hello. As you guys probably do not know, my name is Yosh or Emerson, and I'm a collegiate Grandmaster level Overwatch player. But you clicked to learn about Perk, so I'm not going to waste too much more of your time with this intro, don't worry. But I will say, do not get too heartbroken if you happen to be a die-hard Hog Toss Perk fan, for example, and I choose against it. As I will say multiple times in this video, very many of these perks are matchup dependent, and much of the greatness of these perks, in my opinion, are how every perk can be useful in its correct matchup or playstyle, so there's no real wrong answers here. For the perks that I think are best, they will start and stop highlighted, with the other one that I dislike so much fading out like this. But without further ado, thank you very much.
And for the first one on this list, we have Reinhardt's minor perks being Crusader's Resolved and Fiery Uptake, and it's pretty easy to me, although the 45 health per second, which is Rein's passive numbers, clocking in at 2.5 seconds instead of 5, might be useful. You normally want faster healing from a support that could get ult from it anyways, and healing 120 health to your barrier is just much better in my opinion. Between his Shield Slam and Crushing Victory, I would almost always go with the Shield Bash, because while I don't know the very specifics of the Bash yet in terms of his stats, if it's anything like Briggs, a good dash of mobility in any direction can actually be very useful and just gives Rein a lot more options overall. And while the overhealth could be useful if you're really smart using your pin and very often during team fights, so I'd go with the Shield Bash. And next up onto D.Va's minor perks here, which are kind of weaker overall, but I would 100% go with the Bunny Stomp here, because although players are normally smart enough to stay away from her call mech now anyways, I would actively avoid her other option, as small D.Va can't build D.Va Bomb and is pretty much useless during a team fight, so I'd much rather go with the higher kill potential here on the call mech. And onto D.Va's major perks, being maybe the first tough one for me here, and while it might seem like a no-brainer to choose her shield systems, it very importantly states that it will only heal her 150 shield health defense matrix. But overall, I would say this one is matchup dependent, because the extra offense can definitely win a lot of fights as she wouldn't before, but if you are struggling to get heals and you're dealing with maybe a lot of spam damage and taking a lot of mitigation, then it might be better to go with the shield system. And now onto Junker Queen's minor perks, and between Rending Recall and Battle Shout, I would almost always go with the Battle Shout here, as especially if you have more coordinated brawl team comps. With Junker Queen, extra reload speed with the movement speed and extra health could make the ability just that much stronger, but if you have a less coordinated team comp, not really utilizing your shout as well, maybe the extra self-heal and damage could be okay. I just feel it's not as practical or as strong. Then onto Junker Queen's major perks here, with one okay one being Deep Wounds and one insane one being Savage Satiation. And I would almost always go with the better Carnage here on the Savage Satiation, as getting 105 self-healing on top of the 90 self-healing that you already got from her X is insane for a speedy smaller hitbox like Junker Queen and that much self-healing. And while extending the wounds might be okay, especially if she hits it on multiple people with an axe or her ultimate, I feel like 0.25 seconds is just not really enough, especially when contrasted with the Carnage. Then for Orisa's minor perks, choosing between Heat Dissipator and Fleeting Bulwark, I would say this definitely depends on your playstyle and matchup, because we've seen the Fortify Overhealth before on Orisa, giving her an extra level of sustain, but also if you're farming a tank or hitting a lot of headshots, which isn't too hard to do nowadays, extra ammo can be very strong as well, so I would say overall this is matchup dependent. Then onto two insane ones here, we have her Charged Javelin and her OG Shield. And for the second time, likely due to W game design, I think this is matchup dependent, as if you're dealing with much more dives and aggression from their team, I think the buff Javelin could be a lot stronger, but if you're playing more AFK bunker style on the objective, then her OG Shield could also be very good, especially when paired with her 100 overhealth buff on the Fortify. I could see this being very strong for both. And for the next up in the tank category here, we have Ramattra's Void Surge, or his prolonged barrier. And in most matchups, I'd much rather go with the Void Surge, as it makes his otherwise pretty forgettable staff damage much more bursty and will definitely result in a lot more ult charge from him. I think more time on his shield could be nice, but if you really need that 25 extra duration, you're probably just playing the wrong hero for the matchup anyways, so I'd go with the Void Surge. Then onto Ramattra's major perks on his Nanite Repair versus his Vengeful Vortex, and in my opinion, both of these are pretty weak overall, but I'd go for the Vengeful Vortex, but not for the reason that you might think. Well, specific matchups could add a whole nother layer of fun catching Pharah out of the sky. Adding another layer of flexibility with the Vortex is much better in my opinion. Being able to throw a Vortex above a Rein or a Orisa javelin spin to catch their escape, I think makes the ability a lot more flexible and overall better. And 150 heals over 3 seconds might be nice, but I don't really think you should be standing in your own Vortex really often anyways as Ramattra. Then for Roadhog's minor perks, we have a great one and a not so great one, and I would almost always use his scrap hook over the hog toss, as guaranteeing 2 shots on a hook is very important for Hog's cadence and uptime within the team fight, as a character who's usually shooting a lot with a small magazine, and I think we've all accidentally hit a hook before without any ammo and then just shot a blank. And why on earth do you need to be Tom Brady your pig pen? Like, calm down, low bro. Then onto 2 very good ones this time between Invigorate and Hydrogen Exposure. These are both so game changing that is actually kinda hard for me to choose, but giving Hog mobility, especially during a normally weak and exploitable time for him, is actually unhinged, but also allowing him more flexibility to give your team sustain and healing during the team fight can also be very strong as well. But I don't see many characters teaming up around Hog or grouping up with him very close anyways, so I'd normally go with the mobility if I had to choose. And onto Sigma's minor perks here with Kinetic Cycle and Massive Impact. I would go with the Kinetic Cycle here because while 3 seconds is a long time and may be powerful if followed up with correctly by a teammate, normally if the enemy is that far, Sig himself won't have the range to follow up anyways, and I'd almost never see the accretion being thrown that far away in any of my games, so I think the shorter cooldown will just be a better option overall. Then between 2 insane ones here with Sigma's major perks being Hyper Strike and Levitation, I would definitely go with the Levitation, as giving Sigma mobility, especially to high ground positions, makes him a lot stronger, being the long range poke tank that he is, and giving him the flexibility to help other DPS with a shield or others holding height on the maps like King's Row 3rd or Numbani could be very, very strong. But, big asterisk though, I do have yet to see this Darth Vader-esque melee, and depending how good the levitation is and if they stay in the air very long, similar to his Flux, it might be even better.
And next up for my main man Monkey, and between Short Circuit and Heavy Landing, I would almost always go for the Heavy Landing, as this will make your ultimate just that much better, especially if you have that juggling skill set already locked down. But if they are running more of a deployable style kits, then obviously the extra damage could be a good buff to lessen the counter. And for his major perks being Chain Lightning and Revitalizing Barrier, I would go with the Chain Lightning a majority of the time. While healing allies could be useful in more coordinated sets, 30 heals per second is just not that good, especially when compared to the insane ult charge and damage potential with the secondary fire, as especially after buffs, that little zap has gotten a lot stronger over time in whittling down enemies, especially if they have armor health, and the same damage times 3 is just a better option in my opinion.
And for the next in the tank category being Wrecking Ball, and between his minor perks in Pack Rat and Steamroller, I would go with the Pack Rat, as this will make mini and mega health packs both a lot stronger, which was already a massive part of Ball's self-sufficient playstyle. But while I could imagine 120 damage being good for building mines, especially in a game mode with more than one tank in the 6v6 mode, I would rather they just gave him more knockback or something instead, because I don't think the role affects the tank too much anyways. Then onto Ball's major perks being hang time and transfer efficiency. I'd much rather go with the hang time here, as dealing up to 150 damage and having air control is definitely well worth the longer windup. And while shortening and buffing the ally overhealth might be good if optimized well with the right team coordination, I don't really see the ally overhealth being used much anyways, even with the best Ball players on the rank ladder, and most players will probably rather have Ball just keep his shields for himself anyways. Then onto Zarya's minor perks, and choosing between the high flying fun jump ups and the Gravitron Crush, I would almost always go with the Gravitron Crush, because while high ground and mobility could be very strong for a character like Sig, I don't think Zarya has the range or utility to utilize the high ground quite as well as a character like Sig would, and making your graph that much stronger, especially as a percentage damage, is just much better. Then onto two insane ones here with Zarya's major perks in Energy Lance and Spotter. I'd say this one is overall matchup dependent. If you're playing into more face-to-face fights, being able to double or even triple her damage, especially when at that high charge, could be insane. But healing and speed boost also has incredible potential as more of a supporting playstyle. I think the Energy Lance will be easier to use overall, but you can't really go wrong with either one of these. Then on to everybody's favorite, with Mauga's minor perks being Kinetic Bandolier and 2 hearts. I would almost always go with the 2 hearts here, as capping point and pushing payload faster is always a plus, and more importantly, gaining passive constant healing already plays very well into Mauga's self-sustained playstyle. But if you were to play more of an aggressive playstyle, I could also maybe see the reloading overrun being useful. Then for two more insane ones here in Firewalker and Combat Fuel, I'd go with the Firewalker, as this makes his already busted overrun that much better, giving Mauga instant crit damage without even needing the stomp, and will be even better on tanks, taking away the delay to ignite them with his gun in the first place. I feel like Combat Fuel could be useful, but Cardiac Overdrive is already so boom or bust as an ability as it is, that I feel like Mauga's either full health from using his E or just 0, so 100 overhealth on top of it I don't think makes too much of a difference. Then for the next in the tank category here, with Hazard's minor perks being Off the Top and Reconstruction, I would definitely go with his Reconstruction here for most scenarios, as getting more duration on his Spike Guard will almost always be the better option, especially when paired with one of his major perks up next. And unless you're looking to counter their tank or higher health DPS on their team, I don't really see too much use in the extra 30% on his slash. Then onto his major perks, being one of the easiest choices on this list, with Anarchic Zeal or Deep Leap, and the lifesteal onto his ability that already has damage resistance and deals damage itself is just straight up busted. Usually when you use Spike Guard, the Hazard is looking to minimize damage anyways, so getting more health back is just simply a no-brainer. If you need a longer leap, bro, just play Winston or even Sigma. Then finally onto the DPS category, with Ashe's Sidewinder and Rapid Fire perks. I would definitely choose the Rapid Fire, as I think the 15% damage reduction is well worth the extra firepower close range, but I could definitely also see a world where you just need the extra space control against higher health targets, but for most scenarios I would stick with the Rapid Fire. And then following up on her major perks with Viper Sting and Air Burst, and I would say this one is mostly playstyle dependent. If you're a Kovacs Ashe specialist, getting ammo back and better breakpoints, making ADS headshot and body shot 250 damage could definitely be a no-brainer, but if the consecutive shots aren't landing, ammo and easier dynamites could definitely be a lot more useful, so I'd say this is playstyle dependent. And for the next one on this list, we have Bastion's minor perks being Smart Bomb and Armored Artillery, and I would easily pick the armored artillery, as this gives Bastion's ult a much needed extra dimension of usefulness outside of just the artillery strike itself. Who knows, maybe I'll be wrong and better mobility is just better in the future. I think most people would just rather have Bastion use his nade offensively anyways. Then for some psychotic ones here on Bastion's major perks, we have Lindholm Explosives and Self-Repair, and as much as I'd love to see his Self-Repair back, giving Bastion his mini Overwatch 1 ult back on a cooldown adds a whole nother different playstyle and usefulness for Bastion to be able to deal AoE damage and do much more damage against armored tanks, which he has been very weak to as of late. I think in some matchups, sticking with the minigun and self-heal could be better overall, but I think this is pretty one-sided. Then onto our next in the DPS category with Cass's Quick Draw and Past Noon. I would definitely go with the Quick Draw pretty much every time here, as the ability to headshot and control gives you a lot more viability and damage potential. No idea why you'd intentionally plan to miss his ult and pick a perk for that, as I think most players would rather cancel it sooner than later anyways if you missed it. Don't really know what they were thinking with this one. Then onto two much better ones here for Cassidy's major perks. We have Gunslinging and Bang Bang, and similar to Ashe, I would say if you have the aim, definitely go for the Gunslinging, as giving him more ammo and reloading rolls greatly increases Cass's uptime within the fight. But if you're playing more of an anti-dive playstyle with Cass, or you just can't hit those headshots as well, I can definitely see the use in a boom boom instead of just one flash. Then onto Echo's minor perks here with Friendly Imaging and Enhanced Duplication. I would almost always go with the Friendly Imaging, as we have yet to see the effects of this perk, but y'all mark my words, once all the double gravitic fluxes come out, I think this choice will be a lot more clear. I don't really think 15 to 18 seconds contributes quite as much as double ulting with a teammate here. And for Echo's major perks, between Full Salvo and High Beams, Full Salvo will almost always result in more output during a fight. As much as it could be cool for Echo to have a dash reset type of perk like Genji, going all in for plays is a lot more risky of a playstyle than just having more damage and stickies during a fight, so I would recommend Full Salvo. And for the next in the DPS category here, for Genji's minor perks, we have his Acrobatics pitted up against Dragon's Thirst, and I would definitely go with the Dragon's Thirst here, because while getting an extra double jump after your dash might sound pretty cool and open up some potential Pharah or Echo kills mid-air, Lifesteal on Dragon Blade is just so much more powerful and allows Genji to play so much more flexibly when casted his ult. Then for some much more underwhelming ones here on Blade Twisting and Meditation for his major perks, I would almost always go with the Meditation here, giving Genji 75 self-healing on cooldown while being pretty much invulnerable from a 180-degree angle, as I think it'll be much more useful more often than 25 extra damage requiring a kill. And for the next on this list, with Hanzo's minor perks being Sonic Disruption and Scatter Arrows, I would definitely go with the Scatter Arrows here almost in every situation, as it's just more projectiles, more random damage, and just does more. I could see some rare situations where stopping a Tracer or a ball from a health pack might be good, but Sonic is just so much better used in an actual fight instead of just shooting health packs. Then if you thought Genji's major perks were bad, we have Dragon's Fury and Yamagami Technique as Hanzo's, and I would go with the Dragon Fury every time. Even though you only just get one faster consecutive shot more or less, that is much better than looking like a hooligan spamming wall climb. Like, what are we doing? What is this perk? And on to the next, with Junkrat's minor perks being Aluminum Trap and Nitro Boost. I would more often go with the Nitro Boost here, but I could see it being matchup dependent, as if you're looking to get a kill on the tank, you definitely would not want to take the 50% loss, but the extra speed will almost always be more useful than, again, Thomas Bradying your trap. Like, what are we doing? Then luckily onto some somewhat better ones here with Frag Cannon and TikTok as Junkrat's major perks. I would go with the Frag Cannon, as giving Junk mains extra precision like that with his launcher could be absolutely deadly in the right hands, and I just don't see arming his mines being very strong at all, as his one-shot combo detonating mid-air is just so much better in my opinion. Then onto Mei's minor perks here. When choosing between Mei's Chilling Reach and Permafrost, I would almost always go with the Chilling Reach here, as giving more flexibility in her damage over time slow I think will be a lot more valuable more times, but more duration on her wall could also be good if you're up against more brawl tanks with little mobility. I just think the Chilling Reach is better. Then onto some much better perks here, with her majors being Biting Cold and Cryostorm. I would definitely go with the Cryostorm here, as dealing damage and giving offense to a previously only defensive cooldown I think can be very strong, especially on control points or very congested areas. I suppose if you're really good with Mei's Icicles, Biting Cold could also be a good option, but Cryostorm adds a whole nother layer to Mei's kit. Then onto Pharah's minor perks here, and choosing between Drift Thrusters and Helix Shields, I would almost always go with the Drift Thrusters here, but I could definitely also see this being playstyle dependent. If you want a much better ult and to possibly not make yourself a free kill, I'd argue that's much better, but if you want to play more of a flanking self-sufficient playstyle, I could also see the Helix Shield being useful. Then onto some much better perks here, with her majors being Concussive Implosion and Fuel Stores. While both are good, I would definitely go with the Implosion, as giving Pharah a mini grab on a 9-second cooldown has so much potential, especially with more team coordination, but I could also see a more hyper mobile playstyle being viable with the extra fuel. And for the next, onto Reaper's minor perks here, between Death's Shadow and Soul Reaving, I would likely go with his better teleport here, but I think both of these would be good overall, especially if you're getting a lot of backline picks to try to snowball. Then for Reaper's major perks here, being Dire Triggers and Ravenous Wraith, I would definitely go with the Dire Triggers here, depending on the specifics of it at launch. If it's like the Black Ops 2 KSG and it stays as good as it was in the playtest, it changes everything for Reaper, being able to play as many positions as possible. But if you also want to stick with the old Reaper and go for the greedy out of Wraith plays, I could also see that being very broken as well. And onto Sojourn's minor perks here, between the Overcharge and Extended Mag, I would definitely go with the Overcharged here, as you'll be able to do up to 180 damage body shots with her ult and 270 damage headshots. I guess less reloads could mean overall more rail shots and better neutral fights, but I think the ultimate upgrade will just be a lot better and higher peak potential. Then moving on to Sojourn's majors, being Dual Thrusters and Adhesive Siphon, I would say this is definitely matchup dependent, because if you're dealing with a lot of dive aggression, 2 Power Slides has some absolutely stupid peel potential, but also a buffed Disruptor Shot, being able to stick someone after all of its buffs while also getting energy from it, can also be very strong. And onto Soldier's minor perks here, I would almost always go with the Field Emergency over the Recycled Pulse Munitions, as this opens up a world of carry potential, being able to save a teammate with actual fast heals. Between this and Sombra, DPS characters are just not DPS characters anymore. More ammo might be nice during a fight, but I think Soldier's peak output could just be that much higher with clutch healing. And moving on to Soldier's major perks here, I would definitely choose the Stim Pack over the Agility Training, as especially when paired with Soldier's ult, having a pocket Torb overload on a hit scan like Soldier can just be so strong, and more uptime on his mobility and ammo could also be good, but Stim Pack in the right hands just has so much more potential. And moving on to Sombra's minor perks, choosing between Viral Efficacy and Control Alt-esque, I would almost always go with the potential to snowball fights with Viral Efficacy. I don't think self-healing slightly faster is very good, and I think with Sombra, when you're out with her translocator, and you probably need to get to a health pack anyways. And then between White Hat and Stack Overflow here for her major perks, I would go with the White Hat, because although it sounds really good for it to be increased by 100%, going from 1 to 2 seconds is just not that meaningful in my opinion, and the flexibility to be able to heal your health, your teammates on a DPS character, I think it's pretty crazy and has a lot of potential, so I'd go with the White Hat. And on to Symmetra's minor perks here with Sentry Capacity and Advanced Teleportation. I would almost always go with the extra Sentry on Sentry Capacity, as the turrets are pretty good right now as just DPS, and unless there's some crazy TP strats on some maps, in the future, I would just go with the extra sentry. And for Sim's major perks being perfect alignment and shield battery, I'd go with the perfect alignment, giving Sim more flexibility and playstyle in her range, and also giving her more firepower. I can see the extra tankiness maybe being good if you put the TP down smartly, but I think this is overall kind of gimmicky, and I would just rather go with the range. And for Tracer's minor perks being perhaps some of the most broken on this list, with blink packs and blast from the past, I think this one's kind of a no-brainer, especially for the more skilled Tracers out there. This essentially means just more blinks, as the best Tracers normally play around health packs anyways. Just don't miss your pulse. And for arguably the best perks of any character in my opinion, with flashback and quantum entanglement, I'd go with the flashback perk, as it gives Tracers so much more mobility, especially when paired with her blink packs, to either get away or just use the 3 blinks to aggress back in with the team. I can also see the viability in a 225 health Tracer, even though she won't have her blinks back. I think this one's pretty matchup dependent. Then onto Torbjorn's minor perks being craftsman and fully loaded. I'd much rather go with the fully loaded, as much as it could be kind of fun to heal up your Rein. I think getting a full clip of ammo off of your overload every single time will just be more valuable. And between Torb's major perks here being Anchor Bolts and Overloaded Turret, I'd much rather go with the Overloaded Turret, as having the ability to get that OG Overwatch 1 level 5 turret on a cooldown just has so much potential to deal with flankers or to deal with little staggering people coming on point. And for Venture's minor perks being Seismic Sense and Excavation Exhilaration, I'd almost always go with the Seismic Sense, but I think this is overall matchup dependent, because in especially more coordinated lobbies, I think the wall hacks could be very useful on getting a dive target, but I could also see the cooldowns maybe being good, but I think her ult is already powerful enough. Then onto her majors being Smarter Excavator and Covered in Dirt. I'll go with the extra range on the Smarter Excavator every time. I think more range could cover a lot of Venture's weaknesses as a DPS, and unless you're very close range and aggressive with her melee, I think the extra range will be better value more often. And for next up on the DPS category, with Widow's minor perks being Scoped Efficiency and Focused Aim, I'd go with the Focused Aim almost every time, giving a major buff to an already very powerful ultimate, and I just don't think less reloads will do all too much. Then onto some very exciting ones here for Widow's major perks in Escape Plan and Deadly Dukes. I don't know. I would almost always go with the Escape Plan, as having an extra grapple up more often kind of just can't be a bad thing, as it is a very powerful mobility tool, and I just don't think Venom Mines are strong enough on their own, even with the increased damage, to be useful. Then onto the support category here, with the poster child of broken minor perks. With Groggy and Biotic Bounce, I would almost always go for the Biotic Bounce, as giving 2 explosions onto one of the best cooldowns in the game already is just a no-brainer, and I think we'll see a lot of Ana. Then for perhaps one of the hardest picks here on this list, with Headhunter and Shrike, if I had to go with one, I'd probably go with the Headhunter, but this is very matchup and playstyle dependent, because dealing 150 damage with 0 fall off is just disgusting, especially for building nano, but also having the ability to save yourself with your ultimate can also be very strong, especially against heavy dive or pressure. So as I said before, this one's very dependent. Then onto Baptiste's minor perks being Field Medicine and Automated Healing. I would definitely go with the Field Medicine, as Bap will have a Mortality Field a lot more often than his ult, and getting that extra healing on top of one of the most powerful cooldowns in the game already is just a no-brainer. And for Bap's major perks being Assault Burst and Rocket Boots, I'd go with the Assault Burst, as I'd argue giving this DPS character more DPS is just a better option. I think if you're really needing the extra horizontal mobility on Bap, you might just be on the wrong character anyways, but could be matchup dependent, who knows. And for next in the support roster, between Barrier Restoration and Morale Boost, I will always go with the Morale Boost, as especially at higher ranks, Inspire is almost exclusively definitely proc with Whip Shot, so this will just buff one of Brig's best strengths anyways. Don't really see the need in more shield health, especially if you hit the enemy with Bash. Don't know what they were thinking with this one. Then for Brig's major perks, a lot harder one here with Quick Fix and Whiplash. I would definitely go with the Quick Fix, but this is overall probably matchup dependent, as giving 35 instant heals on top of the 25 she already has just makes her heals stronger and gives her better ult generation, but I could also see, based on the map, the use for a 120 damage Whip Shot. And for the next in the DPS category here, we have Illari's minor perks being Rapid Construction and Summer Solstice. I would almost always go with the Summer Solstice, giving her more flexibility and kill potential during her ult. I don't really see the need to build her pylon slightly quicker, but who knows. Then onto her major perks being Solar Power and Sunburn. I'd go with the Solar Power here, giving Illari a lot more uptime in between her healing and damage, but I could definitely also see the use in Sunburn as an extra defense against dive and aggression. And then onto Juno's minor perks here being Familiar Vitals and Hyper Boost. I'd likely go with the Familiar Vitals, even though I don't see much value in the faster lockup time, but I think it's overall better value than being forced forward through her ring. I don't know, I'm not really too hot on either of these. Then onto Juno's major perks here being Master Blaster and Reboots. I'd definitely go with the Master Blaster, as this will give Juno a lot more options to deal meaningful damage and build ult faster, which she was severely lacking before. Don't really see the value in the extra double jump, and critting enemies I think is just more value. And for the next in the support category here, with Kiriko's minor perks being Urgent Care and Fortune Teller, I'd go with the Urgent Care, making her heals a lot more faster when it's needed the most. Might be wrong on this one, but I don't think 2 healing a Fuda is necessarily enough to outweigh the Urgent Care perk. Then with maybe some of the best perks on this list, with Kiriko's majors being Shuffling and Foxtrot, I'd go with the Foxtrot here, as just making Suzu that much more useful as an ability, as it already does everything, but then just giving it speed is just kind of unreal. I can also see needing more TPs if you need to escape and running from dive constantly, but I think the added speed is just a lot more value, especially if your team coordinates around it well. And for the next minor perks being Lifeweaver's Cleansing Grasp and Life Cycle, I'd go with the Cleansing Grasp, even though normally the grip is enough to save someone as it is. Having the extra cleanse on top of it so they can't get targeted again after the pull is pretty good. Don't really see the point in playing for Lifeweaver's death, and the 10 healing per second is probably just not enough for me. Then for Lifeweaver's major perks being Life Weaving and Super Bloom, I'd probably go with the Life Weaving path here, just giving it more healing overall, but this is very playstyle dependent, as I know a lot of Lifeweaver players would rather go with the better damage Needler instead. Then onto my favorite frogman, Lucio's minor perks being Base Blowout and Groovin. I'd probably go with the Base Blowout here, but this is very playstyle dependent. If you want a much stronger boop and to be able to actually boop tanks again, go with the Base Blowout, but if you never want to reload again, I'd choose Groovin, because I'm telling you don't need to reload. It's crazy. Then onto Lucio's major perks here being Noise Violation and Accelerando. I'd 100% go with the attack speed, as giving Lucio some Tracer-like damage for 4 seconds can be very strong, and I don't really think the larger aura will be that good, at least in game. I could definitely use some more of that in real life, but I'd definitely go with the attack speed here. And for the next in the support category here, with Mercy's minor perks being Angelic Recovery and Winged Reach, I'd definitely go with her Angelic Recovery, giving her self-sustain essentially off of any target, as she also gets a portion of her regular heals back. But I could also see the ultra range on her flight being kind of good as well. And then onto her major perks being Chain Boost and Flash Heal. I would definitely go with the Flash Heal, as burst healing is something Mercy never quite had in her kit, making her a lot worse over the other supports over the years. And I think the double damage boost could also be good, but having both your DPS and Mercy so close together is probably not a good idea anyways. And coming closer to the end here, with Moira's minor perks being Vanish and Uprush, I'd probably go with the Uprush here, giving Moira a lot more options on where she could play, especially on maps with a lot more high ground. I don't really think the 0.5 seconds seconds on her fade duration will be that good, but who knows. And for Moira's major perks being ethical nourishment and contamination, I'd probably go with the ethical nourishment here, as this gives Moira AoE burst healing to a hero who previously had none, and I could also see the use in the healing reduction if you're going for more of an offensive playstyle, so this is probably more playstyle dependent. Then on to everybody's favorite, Zenyatta's minor perks being Zenith Kick and Ascendance. I definitely go for the Ascendance here, as this gives Zen a lot more options on where he could play in terms of high ground and mobility in general. I think while the Zenith Kick might be insane with the knockback, if you're meleeing with Zen, you're probably on the wrong character anyways. Majors being Focus, Destruction, and Duality, and also, thank you for being here. It's kind of crazy that you watched this entire video and listened to me yap for this long about some Overwatch perks. I really appreciate you. Yes you. But I'd much rather go with the Focus Destruction here, as just charging his secondary fire that much faster and giving it an extra orb as well just gives him some crazy burst damage potential, and I think Duality is just a little bit too gimmicky and you'd just rather take the buff secondary fire.
Wait, don't leave yet. Hello again. I just want to say thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. It really does mean a lot to me. As I said in my intro, due to my school esports, I'm contractually obligated to love Overwatch to the day that I die. So if you want to see more of this channel and voice, watch the streams, as I will be streaming very often in the future. And if you want to see more videos like this one, show some support below, as these do take a long time and I'm still trying to get that 4.0 GPA and still have a social life too. So, peace.